This is the Wizard News for Monday, July 20th, 2020. Musical accompaniment by Steve Slagle Trio with the song I Remember You from the album Alive in Harlem. Zinzi Mandela, the youngest daughter of South Africa's first black president, Nelson Mandela, and anti-apartheid activist Winnie Madikizela Mandela, has died at the age of 59. Mandela died in Johannesburg, South Africa, while serving as the country's ambassador to Denmark. She rose to international prominence in 1985 during her father's imprisonment. Last year, she created controversy by calling for the return of the white-owned land to the country's black majority. Zinzi will be remembered for a rich and extraordinary life marked by many iconic moments, the Nelson Mandela Foundation said in a statement. President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a statement, said, Zinzi Mandela had, during our years of struggle, brought home the inhumanity of the apartheid system and the unshakable resolve of our fight for freedom. Source: Indigo, July 17, 2020. Attorney General Raoul opposes federal effort to upend existing asylum system. Attorney General Kwame Raoul joined a coalition of 23 attorneys general in filing a comment letter opposing the federal government's proposal to make several significant changes to the asylum system that would effectively nullify the meaningful right to apply for protection in the United States. By severely restricting asylum eligibility and eliminating several procedural protections, the proposed rule will result in the deportation of asylum seekers who are certain to face persecution or torture in their home countries. If the proposal were to move forward, thousands of current and future residents in Illinois and across the country would be deprived of humanitarian protection. In many cases, would be deported without having the opportunity to be heard, Raoul said. In the comment letter, Raoul and the coalition argue that the proposed rule violates the Administrative Procedure Act and the Immigration and Nationality Act and would make it all but impossible for asylum seekers to secure protection. The Attorneys General highlight that the proposed rule would explicitly deny claims based on gender, gang membership, or opposition to a terrorist group, which district courts have previously recognized as valid bases. The categorical elimination of these claims is also problematic, as each claim from an asylum applicant is supposed to be considered on an individual basis. Raoul and the coalition also argue the proposed rule contains several substantive changes to the asylum process that would effectively block most current and future applicants from receiving protections. For instance, the rule imposes significantly adverse discretionary factors that would provide a basis for unilaterally denying even meritorious asylum applicants. Some of those discretionary factors would end up barring asylum seekers who have traveled through another country without seeking protection there, or for failing to enter the United States with inspection through a port of entry. Courts have previously held that relying on such factors in making asylum determinations violates the law. Moreover, the proposal applies discretionary factors to unaccompanied children, making them more likely to be denied asylum and undermining the very procedural protections that are meant to avoid traumatizing them. Source: Riverbender, July 16th, 2020. This is the Wizard News for Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. Musical accompaniment by Event Horizon Jazz Quartet with the song Last Blue Jay for Jay Manning from the album Event Horizon. Federal Communications Commission votes to designate 988 as a 3-digit dialing code for National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. At its monthly Open Commission meeting, the FCC voted to designate 988 as a 3-digit dialing number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which connects callers to life-saving suicide prevention and mental health crisis services. This vote establishes rules which require all telephone service providers to direct 988 calls to the existing National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by July 16th, 2020. Suicide has ranked as the 10th leading cause of death in the United States since 2008 and claims the lives of tens of thousands of Americans each year. Establishing an easily remembered 3-digit phone number, similar to 911, will make it easier for Americans in crisis to connect with mental health professionals and access the services they need. As the nation remains in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, we know more and more Americans are struggling with mental health and substance use disorders. We are anticipating that these issues will only worsen the longer the pandemic lasts, said David Guth, Chief Executive Officer of Centerstone. That is why Centerstone applauds today's announcement by the FCC to implement a nationwide 3-digit telephone hotline for mental health emergencies, 988. Today's historic decision is a giant step towards breaking down barriers for Americans struggling with mental illness and providing those in need with immediate access to life-saving supports. All of us at Centerstone thank the FCC for their leadership to advance mental health for all Americans, and now look forward to the full implementation of the 988 National Suicide Prevention Hotline over the next 2 years. During the transition to 988, those who need mental help should continue to contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by calling 1-800-273-8255. Source: Riverbender News, July 17th, 2020. Some avian news from North Park, Chicago, Illinois. Someone found a bright yellow and blue macaw in their tree on Thursday July 16th in the evening, near the corner of Berwyn and Sawyer in the North Park neighborhood of Chicago. It turned out that the macaw was Jojo from the auto shop on the 5300 block of North Kedzie. Its owner and crew of friends had to wait for a ladder to reach Jojo, which turned out to not be high enough, and it became dark. When Jojo's owner returned with a pole long enough to reach Jojo on Friday afternoon, Jojo flew away and ended up on a roof of one of the residences on the 5300 block of North Spalding, where neighbors spent much of Saturday, July 18th, trying to coax Jojo down to the sidewalk. On the afternoon of Sunday, July 19th, while at the Grand Canyon, Scott reported that his sisters had, quote, caught, unquote, the macaw at Spalding and Balmoral. My sisters were feeding him peanuts, and the owner just picked him up. My sisters have a red-tailed parrot, so they weren't going to take a chance on losing a finger. The mechanic, who used to have his shop at the gas station on Bryn Mawr and Kedzie, had let Jojo out to spread his wings at least once a day, but Jojo flew away on Thursday. Jojo had held out for peanuts from Scott's sisters instead of yesterday's fruit, the oranges and bananas that were offered to him on the sidewalk on Friday morning. Another neighbor observed that, so how come Jojo didn't make the WGN news? Much prettier than Chance the Snapper, and a bigger challenge. He can fly. Meanwhile, two neighbors reported spotting a red rooster in Eugene Field Park on Sunday, July 19th, in case anyone is missing their rooster. Source: North Park Neighbors, Chicago Facebook page, July 16th through July 19th, 2020. In California, doctors are shipping patients as many as 600 miles away because they can't be cared for locally. In Florida, nurses are pouring in from out of state to reinforce exhausted medical workers. And in Texas, mayors are demanding the right to shut down their cities to avoid overwhelming hospitals. These are the cracks in the United States hospital system, which are widening as more than 70,000 new COVID-19 infections and more than 900 deaths were reported Thursday, July 16th. The first randomized clinical trial testing hydroxychloroquine on patients with mild COVID-19 cases found that the drug worked no better than a placebo. Tens of thousands of absentee ballots have already been disqualified this year, portending a potential electoral crisis in November if COVID-19 forces Americans to vote by mail. Source: The Washington Post, July 17th, 2020. This is the Wizard News for Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020. Musical accompaniment by Jason Cow Hwang with the song Conscious, Concave, Concrete from his album Human Rites Trio. Illinois is looking for its next Poet Laureate. Attention poets, are you looking for a meaningful employment during these difficult economic times? Would you like a job that uses your poetic skills and involves both travel and reading your work in public? Good news. The state of Illinois is seeking to fill the prestigious position of Poet Laureate. Qualified candidates must have lived in the state for 10 years and seen their work published in a non-vanity press. Awards are helpful. A letter of nomination is required. But you must act fast. The deadline to apply is August 15th. This role is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to contribute and to shape the cultural history of our great state of Illinois, said First Lady M.K. Pritzker, who will select a new laureate from a list of nominees. So why are you hearing about this only now? The idea was to make a splash in early spring. Certain cataclysmic events intervened. Maybe April, maybe tied into Poetry Month, said Mark Eleveld, a book publisher on the search committee. It kept getting pushed back. The Post has been empty since 2014. The administration of the flint-hearted Bruce Rauner certainly wasn't going to do anything poetic when the last poet laureate, Kevin Stein, stepped down. Source: Chicago Sun-Times, July 19th, 2020. State media associations urge Congress to expand payment protection program to cover all local stations. When Congress returns to Washington, one focus will be passing another stimulus bill, especially in the Senate, which has yet to act on a package of proposals passed by the House 2 months ago. The House bill included a $180 million Heroes Fund that would provide for a hazard pay of up to $10,000 for essential frontline workers. Local radio, TV, and newspaper employees would explicitly be eligible. That idea isn't one that has the endorsement of the 50 state broadcaster associations, but in a letter to congressional leaders, they did endorse several proposals that would help local station owners and indirectly the people that work for them. But in a letter to congressional leaders, they did endorse several proposals that would help local station owners and indirectly the people that work for them. The state associations are asking Congress to ensure that the local media will be able to continue taking advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program, the government loan program designed to help small businesses keep workers on the payroll. While stations and newspapers typically operate locally, the rules of the Paycheck Protection Program enacted in March excluded many local clusters because of the size of their parent corporations, since the law included a 500 employee cap. The House bill would allow broadcasters with up to $41.5 million in annual revenue on a local, per station, or newsroom basis to be eligible for the Payment Protection Program. The state associations would like to see the Senate take a similar step. Congress should be applauded for this program, which saved many local news outlets from closing their doors, the group said. The state broadcast associations are also urging Congress to direct federal government ad campaigns to prioritize local media for messages about the pandemic, the census, and other public health initiatives. The federal government can achieve important policy goals by providing direct and indirect support for advertising on local media distributed across local media sectors and equitably allocated across large, medium, and smaller communities, they said. Despite seeking federal ad buys, the state broadcasters said stations remain committed to providing critical and free service to their local communities. Unlike other businesses who have had the option of temporarily closing their doors, local broadcasters and news publishers have maintained their operations, which have become more important than ever to their communities, the group said. The associations told lawmakers that some local broadcasters have seen advertising declines of more than 50% compared to last year, and others have seen as much as 90% of their advertising buys canceled. Local broadcasters alone may see revenue losses of more than $14 billion this year, according to an industry analysis, they noted. Source: Inside Radio, July 17th, 2020. This is the Wizard News for Thursday, July 23rd, 2020. Musical accompaniment by Dave Stryker with Bob Mincer and the WDR Big Band with the song Aha from the album Blue Soul. 130 days have passed since Louisville woman Breonna Taylor was shot and killed by the police, and no arrests have been made. For this reason, protests have been nearly constant in Louisville, but those wanting justice for Breonna Taylor have increased the stakes. Organizers went on strike Monday, July 20th, with tens of thousands of workers walking off their jobs during the workday. Those unable to leave work knelt for Black lives for the 8 minutes and 46 seconds it took for George Floyd to be killed by the Minnesota police. 4 people in Louisville have gone on a hunger strike. They're demanding that Sergeant John Mattingly and Detective Miles Cosgrove be fired and have their pensions revoked. The hunger strikers also streamed their efforts on Facebook. One of the participants, Ari Maybe, recently said, "In this form, we can control it. It's not like a sit-in where we can be arrested. It's not like a protest where there's a beginning and an end. We control the beginning, the end, and the entire narrative." Source: The Jasmine Brand, July 21st, 2020. The National Lawyers Guild National Office is launching a hotline for activists and lawyers to report incidents of federal repression, such as FBI door knocks at activists' homes, grand jury investigations and subpoenas, and any other federal law enforcement efforts to undermine civil rights, including federal grab squads and the use of unidentified federal agents to police protests. The line is live at 212-679-2811. Since May, the National Lawyers Guild has continued to support the movement for Black lives, organizing to support legal defense efforts and provide legal observers for demonstrations. In the last week, we have seen the use of anti-protest shock troops by the federal government, such as Portland, where federal grab squads have arrested activists and taken them away from demonstrations in unmarked vans. A memorandum from the Department of Homeland Security suggests that these officers are acting under the auspices of DHS and are members of the Border Patrol Tactical Unit. This is a unit typically tasked with high-level law enforcement operations, and it is formed under the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. These officers are acting under direct orders from the Trump administration and acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf. The use of the Border Patrol Tactical Unit to disrupt activism is a recent escalation by the federal government, which has also used the National Guard, FBI, and Secret Service in order to violently quell protests. These efforts come in combination with an aggressive political and legal strategy labeling Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Federal prosecutors are also filing criminal charges against the activists throughout the country. The National Lawyers Guild Federal Defense Hotline will allow callers to have privileged conversations with attorneys and to receive attorney referrals, know your rights information, and resources for responding to grand jury investigations and subpoenas. The line is staffed by attorneys organizing with the National Lawyers Guild and will remain active as long as federal prosecution efforts continue. The National Lawyers Guild, whose membership includes lawyers, legal workers, jailhouse lawyers, and law students, was formed in 1937 as the United States' first radically integrated bar association to advocate for the protection of constitutional, human, and civil rights. Source: the National Lawyers Guild, July 21st. 2020. This is the Wizard News for Friday, July 24th, 2020. Musical accompaniment by Steve Slagle Trio with the song Barbara from the album Alive in Harlem. In a press conference today at the University of Chicago, the U.S. Department of Energy unveiled a report that lays out a blueprint strategy for the development of a national quantum internet, bringing the United States to the forefront of the global quantum race and ushering in a new era of communications. Around the world, consensus is building that a system to communicate using quantum mechanics represents one of the most important technological frontiers of the 21st century. Scientists now believe that the construction of a prototype will be within reach over the next decade. In February of this year, the U.S. Department of Energy, national laboratories, universities, and industry met in New York City to develop the blueprint strategy of a national quantum internet, laying out the essential research to be accomplished, describing the engineering and design barriers, and setting near-term goals. The Department of Energy is proud to play an instrumental role in the development of the National Quantum Internet, said U.S. Secretary of Energy Dan Laureate. By constructing this new and emerging technology, the United States continues with its commitment to maintain and expand our quantum capabilities. The U.S. Department of Energy's 17 national laboratories will serve as the backbone of the coming quantum internet, which will rely on the laws of quantum mechanics to control and transmit information more securely than ever before. Currently, in its initial stages of development, the quantum internet could become a secure communications network and have a profound impact on areas critical to science, industry, and national security. Crucial steps towards building such an internet are already underway in the Chicago region, which has become one of the leading global hubs for quantum research. In February of this year, scientists from the U.S. Department of Energy's Argonne National Laboratory in Lamont, Illinois, and the University of Chicago entangled photons across a 52-mile quantum loop, successfully establishing one of the longest land-based quantum networks in the nation. That network will soon be connected to the U.S. Department of Energy's Fermilab in Batavia, Illinois, establishing a 3-node, 80-mile testbed. The combined intellectual and technological leadership of the University of Chicago, Argonne, and Fermilab has given Chicago a central role in the global competition to develop quantum information technologies, said Robert J. Zimmer, president of the University of Chicago. This work entails defining and building entirely new fields of study, and with them, new frontiers for technological applications that can improve the quality of life for many around the world and support the long-term competitiveness of our city, state, and nation. Argonne, Fermilab, and the University of Chicago have a long history of working together to accelerate technology that drives United States prosperity and security, said Argonne Director Paul Kearns. We continue that tradition by tackling the challenges of establishing a national quantum internet, expanding our collaboration to tap into the vast power of American scientists and engineers around the country. Decades from now, when we look back to the beginnings of the quantum internet, we will be able to say that the original nexus points were here in Chicago, at Fermilab, Argonne, and the University of Chicago, said Nigel Lockyer, director of Fermilab. As part of an existing scientific ecosystem, the U.S. Department of Energy national laboratories are in the best position to facilitate this integration. One of the hallmarks of quantum transmissions is that they are exceedingly difficult to eavesdrop on as information passes between locations. Scientists plan to use that trait to make virtually unhackable networks. Early adopters could include industries such as banking and health services with applications for national security and aircraft communications. Eventually, the use of quantum networking technology in mobile phones could have broad impacts on the lives of individuals around the world. Finally, creating networks of ultra-sensitive quantum sensors could allow engineers to better monitor and predict earthquakes, a long time and elusive goal, or to search for underground deposits of oil, gas, or minerals. Creating a full-fledged prototype of a quantum internet will require intense coordination among U.S. federal agencies, including the U.S. Department of Energy, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Defense, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, the National Security Agency, and NASA, along with national laboratories, academic institutions, and industry. Source: Argonne National Laboratory, July 23, 2020.